Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is my post-Olympia recap thoughts video. So first and foremost, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. I'm sick. If you can't tell, I am sick. I'm pretty sure the weekend just and all the stress and lack of sleep definitely was a factor in me getting sick, but I've basically been wearing the same thing for 2 days to bed and when I wake up, but I haven't really been doing much lately. So I did stop into the contest prep center a few days ago to meet with Coach Adam to get a post-show physique assessment, and that will come at the later part of this video. But before that, I kind of just wanted to express my thoughts and feelings now that I had time to sit down and, let it marinate in my mind. So first and foremost, this year's Olympia, the prep was more stressful than any prep I've ever done. And honestly, there's no reason why. I think I was really in my head a lot, but I was a very unpleasant person to be around. I was just so antisocial. I was so focused, so stressed, and just worrying to no end. So I don't know. It was like I really worked up a scenario in my head, I guess, and it caused me to be really just, I don't know, out of it. I was just really cranky, and I'm not usually like that. But then again, with the Olympia, I always say the Olympia is not necessarily fun because it's so business. It's pressure, pressure to do well. Whereas if it was a show that was, just any other local show or qualifier show, I wouldn't experience this amount of stress. But the Olympia is like the final exam. You can do well all year, but if you don't do well on your final exam, you might fail the class. So I just worked it up in my mind too much. Now, when we get to the show day itself, that was a different story. I felt so amazing on show day. I felt so confident, and just like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I can't explain it because in contrast to the previous week or so, it was like night and day. I felt so good. My mind was clear and I wasn't overly nervous. I just did my thing. And I'm so shocked that I did as well as I did. I mean, in a good way. I never go into shows with expectations, but I realize how hard it is in the bikini division, especially. Places get moved around. You can easily be, third, or you can easily be 16th, So nailing that conditioning and doing everything just right, it definitely weighs on you. So I'm so proud of myself for being able to overcome the pressure and just having an awesome, show day. It was great. And honestly, pre-judging, I felt so good. The stage was great. It was lightly carpeted. It was in the expo. I felt smooth as butter. And I was yeah, I feel confident. Even in my comparisons and stuff, I felt good too. And honestly, gosh, I'm so quick with those comparisons. But just so you guys know, they did give us a 45-second posing limit for our individuals. Now, I don't know who stuck to that and who didn't, but mine was still short. So, So I had a great experience in prejudging. And then right away, I had to head back to the hotel, freshen up for finals. There was no time in between. So on finals was a different story. Finals, I was starting to get a little tired, a little anxious. And oh my gosh, the stage at finals was so difficult. The hardest stage I've ever had to walk on, ever. It was squishy carpet. It was you walk and your heels almost dug into the stage, which was probably amazing for fitness competitors, all that padding, but for me it was walking in sand. and it was so freaking shaky. So shaky. I even stuttered in my individual presentation. It was not smooth. I cringe when I even look at it. I try not to look at my funhouse presentation. But funny enough, like even when we were standing like for our awards, even just standing there was hard to balance on heels because of that really deep, like padded carpet. It was such a challenge. And honestly, I don't even know if I could practice for that. I don't even know what surface would be comparable to that. So, yeah, after the show, I had such a hard time falling asleep because I was so excited. I was like, I cannot believe it. Even days after, I was still like in shock. I'm like so proud of myself. Like, I know that sounds funny. I'm so proud of myself. Like, I did it. I passed 2023 with an A. So I'm just so grateful, you know. Anytime I do a show, I'm often reminded like I live a pretty awesome life, and I'm so lucky to be able to get to do what I love, and I have amazing sponsors that pay my travel and show expenses. I have an awesome coach. You know, I'm a free bird. I can go wherever, whenever I want. I live a great life, and I never forget that. So, yeah, I can't believe I got third another year. That's amazing. I'm really proud of myself. So, and I say I'm just getting started. So, you'll see me back there next year. Maybe I'll do even better. We'll see. But I'm still in the mix, which makes me super happy. And it's just, yeah, I live a great life. That's all I can say. So I appreciate everyone for the support. And if you got to see me during the Olympia, it was a pleasure meeting you. Sorry if I wasn't as talkative as usual. I was just really stressed. So, you know, as far as the Arnold, I'm pretty sure I want to do it, but there's a chance that I might because I have to get eye surgery again. And not LASIK, I'm talking about like strabismus eye surgery. So like you got to be put under anesthesia. It's not LASIK. It takes a long time to recover. I'm still debating though, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. First, I'm going to take a week off from the gym, which I've done. Perfect timing because I'm sick anyway. Taking a week off from gym. Diets, you know, I wouldn't say I'm going crazy or anything like that. I'm having a few extra snacks, but I still like my prep food. But yeah, I'm going to get off this video now because my throat hurts. But yeah, now we're going to look at my physique check with Coach Adam. All right, guys, so I'm sitting here with Coach Adam, and it is currently Wednesday after Olympia. We're still super tired, well, at least I am, exhausted, and we're going to do a post-show physique assessment, talk about all the things we did good, things we can improve on, and what to expect moving forward.
Yeah, so I think first off, it's important whenever we're coming from one show to one Olympia to another Olympia is looking at your pictures and going from last year's Olympia to this year's Olympia, and looking at the improvements that you made. And so I want to go in. When you're an advanced lifter, like Ashley's an advanced lifter right now, you're not going to be making these huge changes year over year. Anytime you get past that like 3 or 4 year marker of lifting weights, you don't see these dramatic changes. At least in building muscle. You could see dramatic changes in like conditioning and whatnot, but in building muscle, it's going to be very slight year over year once you reach that threshold of being what you'd call an advanced lifter. Now, looking at your overall detail from year to year, I think you got to look at the slight things, and I'm glad that you're doing this video so people can see the slight differences.
Yeah, because upon first glance, you just be like, oh, the only thing I see different is suit and hair,
Yeah.
But if you look closely and if you have the eye for it, you can see that there are minor changes that were made.
Yeah. So one of the main ones, and that we talked about last year, we worked really hard on, was your shoulders.
Yeah.
You really crushed your shoulders this year. You did a great job with it. And if you look at it, you see this like the roundness of your shoulder here, and you see the roundness of your shoulder here. It's a little bit more round. There's a little bit, but the thing is, there's a lot more detail to the shoulder. You look at the density, and you look, and if I'm going to draw these lines right on the density, like the separation lines and the detail lines, when they disappear, you can look right there and you can see those detail lines on that shoulder. And over here, you can't see the detail lines on this shoulder. So you had a little bit, but nothing like this. So the density, sometimes you're looking for density and groove as an improvement more so than actual size. So I do think you put on a little bit of size on the shoulders. Still a hard muscle for you to grow.
Yeah.
But you have much better density, much better detail. When we look at the arm, there's really, I mean,
Arm looks much
lot
better.
better, yeah.
That tricep and bicep, that vein though.
The density of the arm, the detail of the arm, even the conditioning of the arm is better here than it was over here. And also another thing that you are, I don't know if you've noticed this or not yet, but your waistline is actually smaller over here, and it's obviously smaller over here. I would say maybe an inch smaller. You look more, you look like you're more full here, a little fuller, right? Like you're more, I guess, dense in the core here. Than over here though. You look more detailed and smaller in the core here. So
Yeah, I mean, we only trained abs for like 1 month this whole year, slightly, just very light. So it's interesting because I think like that's an area that it's like we were debating, should we train it, should we not? So I don't think we necessarily need to go any more than this because we'll get to the comparisons, but it's already pretty overly etched for bikini.
yeah. And if we run into an area this year where we do it for a little bit again, then maybe it's be like 2 weeks or something like that, you know, like way down the road. But the thing is, with your waistline being smaller and your shoulders being a little bit bigger, your V-taper looks a lot better. I mean, and I will say from the back, your V-taper looked awesome, and from the front too. But a lot of this has to do with how small your core is and how little. I mean, your oblique line looks tiny here. It's great. Look at how little that is. It's so dense and small, and it's just, you know, it looks like an inch. I would say it looks like an inch smaller. I know it's not an inch smaller, but it looks an inch smaller. So great on that. The legs on you, they look similar in terms of the legs. The glute similar too. I mean, you didn't need any more legs or glutes though, but I do think, you know, as we talked, you know, earlier this year, we're probably going to be working on getting the legs a little bit more muscular now because of the girls that are in that top 5 do have more muscular, just thicker legs, you know. So I think that's going to be a target for us this year to actually start focusing on some quad work again.
Definitely. And then as far as you guys obviously could see, the suit differences, the hair and the makeup is different. And
Yeah, let's go into that.
Your personal opinion, Adam, what suit do you like better? I like the green.
You know what's funny? It's funny. So when we talk about like the total package, right? The hair, the makeup, the tan. It's funny because I think you picked the right hair for the right suit on both. I think the red is a little bit more of like a sexier kind of like look, right? The red hair or the red lip, the red suit, and the straight hair. And then the green, you don't get the same like sexiness vibes from a green suit as you do a red suit. But then you have, you know, this matches your personality. The green, it's not like because you're not like a sexy poser, a sultry poser. And the curled hair, it like matches better, right? The look matches the suit, you know?
Yeah.
So if you switched these, I would probably say I didn't like the hair on either, right? I would be like, no, it doesn't match.
You're right. It wouldn't look that fitting, yeah.
It doesn't flow as well, right?
Yeah.
So I would say you nailed it for the suit. Yeah.
I mean, I think the green is my favorite suit to date. I had Angels make a suit that was a shade between my lighter green suit, which was the Electric Hill, and a shade that was lighter than the Grasshopper suit, which was the darker, and then darker than the light suit, which is Electric Hill. So it was like an in-between green, a true green, like a grass green. So we're naming this one Sweet Pea, Angel Competition Bikinis, code Ashley K Fit at checkout. But I liked it. I mean, I might go back and forth with the red and green, but for now I'm on a green kick, so.
Yeah, and I think that we should look at these pictures and look at your hair in both and probably just go with that, you know? I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So, but yeah, I'm happy with this color. I love this suit. We saw looking in the office here. I really liked this suit, and it really popped on stage too. It actually looks darker in pictures than it does on stage.
Yeah, on stage it was a bit brighter. I think.
Way brighter. Yeah, it was a lot different actually. So so that all looks good. And then when we go to your backside here, honestly, there's not much you could do here from the back. Like your back is awesome.
Yeah, and I know people can say, well, your glutes could be bigger or your hamstrings could be tighter or better tie-ins. But then again, if we're looking at what won for bikini, they're not looking for like the crispiest tie-ins. They're not looking for wellness glutes. Otherwise, it would be a wellness competition.
Yeah.
So for a bikini, you have to have that eye that it's like just enough but not too much. So I
Yeah.
think that is fitting. I think that's a good glute
Yeah, when
shot
we
for
look at the
me.
lines, we look at the width of the shoulders. You have good rear delts. You have a good V taper on your back here. Your triceps are popping now. I'm really happy with your triceps. I think we can even get those a little bit more now. The waistline is just crazy small from the back. The glutes have the upper outer edge is there. You know, we were lacking in that a couple years back, and now it's fully there, fully in. The tie-ins are there, but they're not etched in. If you look at Maureen, you know, her tie-ins are there, but not etched in. That's what they want. And I think the problem is if you got any tighter, you're already starting to see it, just the tiniest bit of hamstring separation here in the middle. If you get any tighter than this, then you're gonna have hamstring separation, and that's gonna hurt you. It's not gonna help you. So I think this year, when we look at this year, you know, yeah, we can get the shoulders a little bit more on the rear delt, a little bit more on the width of the shoulder, you know, a tiny bit more in the arms. But the legs themselves are pretty much there. I think that we could get just a little bit deeper on the development of the glute, but not any more etched on it. So like a little bit more of it, but not etched on it. You know, when we look at your tie-ins, we want to look at where yours sit versus where everyone else's sit. And you have some girls that have like the longer, deeper tie-ins that you'll see in like the top 5. You'll have a couple girls that have that longer, deeper tie-in. Yours is a shorter glute tie-in, right?
And that's something we can fix. It's genetics. It's your tie-in. So yeah, I do have shorter tie-ins, but it makes it good from the side, though. It makes your booty pop from the side more.
Yeah,
I will
you have
say
this
that.
profile here.
More of a
because
shelf booty.
Yeah, so the only thing that I think you could work on one, you can't get it any longer, but you can get it just a little bit bigger here on this tie-in to kind of create the illusion of being similarly in that 3D effect, right? Because when someone has a longer muscle, there's just more of it to see. And so if we have more of it to see without etching it in, I think that's going to be a positive too. So for next year, I think we get a little bit more on the quads, a tiny bit more just maybe detail or even thickness to the tie-in, but not a ton more. Like obviously we can't get it lower. A little bit on the shoulders like we talked about to help with the width. And that would be really all the game planning we need to hopefully maintain or climb into next year. So we'll have to see, you know. But I think that it's going to be a positive for you based on everyone around you and how muscular they are, you know.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, there's a lot of strengths that you have where you, honestly, you kind of dominate in some areas from those girls in the top 5, and there's some of them that will dominate you in parts, right?
Right.
But I think there's more that you have that dominate than you see against you, you know? So I think the option of you growing and creating that total package that dominates everywhere is there. The option's there. The only thing that you're gonna lack from them is you don't have the widest hips, what we talked about.
Yeah.
And you don't have the longest tie-ins. But everything else I think is and you don't have the longest clavicles, but you have good clavicles, you know? I think everything else we can overcome with just a little more size, you know?
Yes.
So.
Okay, cool.
All right, so what I want to do is go into, you know, strengths and weaknesses for you so we can see where the obvious ones are. So the first off one in the strengths, I'm going to go with, you know, your core. I do think your core is, out of this lineup, the best. I think hers is going to be, you know, second best here. Core looked really good this year for her. But I do think that you win here on this core, you know, if you're looking at just that shot. Now, when we look at overall shoulder width, you know, I do think when it comes to shoulder width right now, you'd probably be in that 3rd or 4th in this grouping here.
Fourth.
Yeah, probably 4th. And that's where these, you know, her roundness and bubbliness comes in. Jen really brought her shoulders this time. And, you know, she has really good width here for her overall base. But in terms of ratios, though, when we talk about shoulder to waist ratio, I think it goes, you know, you and her, you know, 1 and 2 right there with shoulder to waist ratio. So you don't need a lot to create the same ratios as everyone else, right? Like, you know, when you look at the waistline, when you're talking about shoulder to waistline ratio, of course she needs bigger shoulders because she's got a wider waist than you, right? So she has to have bigger shoulders to create that same illusion. If you had shoulders this big, they would look too big for you. They would look kind of figurey, right? So Maureen's done a really good job with keeping that pretty muscle on those shoulders, and I think that we can just get a little bit bigger before we cross over into being too big and still really maximize the illusion. And then the other thing I think too, when we look, it's only when you're next to these higher ranking competitors where you see where the quad becomes more of an issue, you know?
Yeah, I have small quads.
Yeah. I mean, in this,
Really small quads.
in this top 4 grouping has pretty
Juicy quads.
juicy quads, right? Yeah. So you would be, you know, 4th in the quad here, but the most petite and the in terms of balance, still one of the better balance out of these 4. Actually, I mean, it's you and Maureen are the best balance out of these 4. You know, so I do think when we look at you in other places, that your quads don't need work, but when we look at you in places like this, we're like, okay, needs quads, right? And it's just, and that's where you'll get that kind of fading comes in, right? So now if we get your quads bigger, which we know for you, your legs tend to grow pretty easily. I think that I would say easier than everything else, not easily, but easier than everything else. Your quads are going to probably get bigger pretty like a faster rate than your shoulders. We just have to be aware of your balance when we do that. So so quad work, shoulder work, I think a tiny bit in the lat, even though your V taper is really good, it's not going to hurt you to have more. If you look here, you know, she's got really good lats here. So yeah.
I think also something to note is my lats are a little bit lower, it seems like, in comparison to everyone else. So that's one of my disadvantages. My lats are lower, whereas everyone in this lineup has really high lats, right? And that's another thing that's like a genetic. It's not like I can fix that. I just have to build on what I have to create the illusion of more lats, you know?
So in the walk, honestly, and I know you always say I give you too much credit in the walk, but in the walk you kill the front walk. Like no one's close to you in the front walk. Look at your core. Look at how small your waistline is. I mean, I will say she's done a very good job with her waistline this year compared to the years before. But I still think, I think that I think that your waistline is the smallest, and I think that, it gets exposed when people open up from the front, like how detailed your core is versus everyone else. And of course, with you, we're always like being careful of how much detail because it gets too crazy. But I think that this is an area of improvement for her to get her core better. But you win this from the front post. So hopefully they walk you more next year.
Well, I would say, I know you think I'm a good walker. I just have a different style. It makes me a little faster and more bouncy, whereas the other girls seem to be a little more sultry and slow.
Yeah.
But it's, just personal preference. Some people hate my walk. Some people love it. But
I think
it's me, so.
It really shows, though, like your waistline and your core from like how you look in it, besides just the walking part of it, But yeah, like credit
She has the
credit
smallest
to Jen.
waistline from the front.
She did a good job this year with her waistline. It's a lot different than last year. Good credit to her on that. So we'll use this picture here for the tie-ins. What we talked about, your tie-ins are exactly where they need to be. If you look at the winner's tie-ins, they're deep, but they don't have a full etching to them. Yours, not a full etching to them. You have some people that have deeper tie-ins, like lower ones, but in terms of like the shape of yours,
butt smiles.
in terms of the shape of them, yours are really good. They're just higher. Like out of this lineup, you're probably the second highest on them.
Yeah.
So we just need them to be a little bit thicker in order to be able to hang, so they don't get kind of dwarfed in that. So
Yeah, what's crazy is I know my hamstrings are really like juicy and bubbly, but like from the back, they don't like crisp up like some people's do. Does that make sense? Like you would think with my side hamstring that I would be like, dang, she's got to be having some great tie-ins, but doesn't necessarily translate like that. So
yeah,
interesting.
So yeah, no, from the back you could actually make the argument that maybe even more would be okay, but from the front, there's like no way. You have a really really strong hamstring. So yeah, so that's basically it. So it's just the same thing, same areas, and that's where we need to just look at and improve for next year a little bit.
We're just getting started. We got many improvements to make, and I have been making them, so
You're not,
it's possible to be better.
You're getting better every year, so that's what's really cool about this whole thing.